The tension aboard the bridge of the EDF Dauntless could be cut with a knife as the alien vessels maintained their distance. Captain Maya Rodriguez studied the holographic display, watching the crystalline ships shimmer against the backdrop of stars. "What's their weapons status?" she asked, voice steady despite the historic nature of this encounter. Lieutenant Park's fingers danced across his console. "Unable to determine, Captain. Their energy signatures don't match anything in our database, but they're scanning us extensively." The communications officer, Specialist Chen, looked up from her station. "Captain, they're broadcasting something. It's not radio waves exactly, some kind of modulated quantum field." Rodriguez nodded. "Run it through all decryption protocols. Let's see if we can understand what they're saying." As the crew worked frantically to decode the alien transmission, Rodriguez studied the strange vessels. Their design defied human engineering principles. No visible propulsion systems, no apparent weapons arrays, and a crystalline structure that should have shattered in the vacuum of space. Whatever these beings were, their technology was centuries beyond Earth's best efforts. Across the void, aboard the Accord diplomatic vessel Harmonious Journey, First Emissary Gentar was experiencing his own crisis. His empathic sensors were overwhelmed by the emotional signatures emanating from the human ships. Complex swirls of curiosity, fear, determination, and a readiness for violence that made his inner membranes contract in distress. "They are preparing to attack," warned Defense Coordinator Lin, her optical stalks extended in alarm. "Those energy fluctuations indicate weapons charging." Gentar raised a calming appendage. "Not necessarily. Remember our briefing. This species evolved on a predator-heavy world. Defensive posturing may be their standard greeting." "Predator-heavy?" First Scientist Kelvo adjusted his atmospheric filter nervously. "You mean they are the apex predators of their world? No wonder their vessels bristle with destructive capability." Back on the Dauntless, a breakthrough came as the computer systems finally decoded a portion of the alien transmission. "Captain," Chen called out, "I got something. Audio only, and it's rough, but..." Rodriguez nodded. "Put it through." A melodic, almost musical voice filled the bridge, broken by static. "Peaceful contact. Stellar accord. Exchange of knowledge. No hostile. They're trying to talk to us," Rodriguez realized, her expression softening slightly. She turned to her executive officer. "Commander Takeda, lower shields by 15%. Keep weapons hot but stand down targeting systems. Let's show them we're listening." "Captain," Takeda protested, "regulations state." "Regulations never anticipated first contact," Rodriguez countered. "Sometimes you have to extend a hand first." She turned to communications. Specialist Chen, broadcast on all frequencies. Universal greeting package along with basic mathematic sequences. Let's see if they understand. As the human message streamed toward the alien vessels, Rodriguez watched the view screen intently. After several tense minutes, the crystalline ships adjusted their position, their aggressive scanning beams powering down. "They're backing off," Park reported, maintaining distance but no longer in approach vector. "Good," Rodriguez nodded. "Now we wait. Maintain current posture and prepare diplomatic protocols. Someone wake up Dr. Mercer. Looks like our xenolinguist is about to earn his paycheck." Across the stars, two vastly different civilizations had just taken their first tentative steps toward understanding, each finding the other simultaneously fascinating and terrifying. The humans' military precision and readiness for conflict bewildered the peace-oriented Accord species, while the aliens' unfamiliar technology and biology triggered every evolutionary warning signal in the human crew's collective instincts. First contact had been achieved without bloodshed, but the real challenges were just beginning. Chief Researcher Elia hunched over the holographic display, her four eyes blinking asynchronously as she processed the latest human transmission intercepts. The atmospheric processors in the research chamber worked overtime to compensate for the stress pheromones her species released when agitated. "Play it again," She instructed the analysis system. Focus on the emotional undertones. The recording flickered to life. A human news broadcast discussing the first contact event. The translator overlay struggled with certain concepts, flagging words like defense readiness, tactical assessment, and first strike capability for contextual review. They discuss violence so casually, whispered her assistant Naren, appendages twitching nervously. Even in their information dissemination, conflict frameworks dominate. Elia adjusted her perception filters. Not just conflict, preparation. There's a subtlety here we're missing. She highlighted a segment where human officials debated response protocols. Look how they disagree openly, challenge each other's positions, yet arrive at consensus. Across the chamber, cultural anthropologist Zevnar analyzed centuries of human entertainment media. Their recreational storytelling is saturated with conflict narratives, he reported. But observe, their heroes typically fight to protect others, not for personal gain. They value self-sacrifice for collective benefit. Elia's communicator chimed. The Accord High Council was assembling for an emergency session on the human question. She gathered her preliminary findings and hurried through the crystalline corridors of the research station. Meanwhile on Earth, the United Earth Security Council convened in the underground complex beneath Geneva. Representatives from every major nation sat around the circular table, faces illuminated by the soft blue glow of information displays. General Wei Cheng, recently appointed Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces, stood before the assembled leaders. His weathered face remained impassive as he delivered his assessment. The alien vessels possess technology centuries beyond our current capabilities, he stated flatly. Their propulsion systems alone would revolutionize our understanding of physics. However, he paused, tapping his console to bring up sensor readings. Their ships show minimal defensive hardening and no obvious weapon systems. A peaceful species, asked the Brazilian representative hopefully. Or one that never needed weapons, countered Chang. Either way, we must accelerate our defensive capabilities immediately. I recommend implementing the Sentinel Protocol. A murmur ran through the chamber. The Sentinel Protocol had been drafted decades ago as a contingency for exactly this scenario. Confirmation of advanced extraterrestrial life. President Okafor leaned forward. The Sentinel Protocol would require unprecedented cooperation between nations, sharing of classified technologies, and massive resource reallocation. Precisely why it would work, Chang replied. Our divisions were a luxury of isolation. That luxury has ended. The Russian representative nodded slowly. For once, I agree with the general. We have centuries of conflict experience that may prove valuable. If these aliens have never faced adversity, we don't know that they're hostile, cautioned the Indian representative. And we don't know that they're not, Chang countered. But we do know they're watching us, even now. He wasn't wrong. In orbit, cloaked Accord observation platforms recorded the increased activity at military installations worldwide, the redeployment of space assets to defensive positions, and the surge in communication between previously rival power blocks. Back in the Accord Council chamber, Elia presented her findings with growing unease. They're unifying, she explained. Previous divisions are being set aside in response to our presence. High Chancellor Varix's bioluminescent patches pulsed with concern. A species that evolved through internal competition now sees us as the external challenger. We may have inadvertently created exactly what we feared, a unified warrior culture with its attention focused outward. Perhaps, Elia suggested tentatively, we should attempt communication again, before their preparations advance further. The diplomatic chamber aboard the human flagship Intrepid had been hastily converted from a tactical briefing room. Crew members had removed weapon displays and strategic maps, replacing them with more neutral decor. Admiral Maya Rodriguez studied the alien delegation from across the polished conference table, noting their nervous movements and the way their translucent skin pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Let me be direct, Rodriguez said after the initial pleasantries had been exchanged. Your transmission mentioned an urgent situation. We're prepared to listen. High Chancellor Verix's universal translator converted his melodic speech patterns into crisp English. We face an existential threat. A species we call the Harvesters has begun systematic attacks on our outer colonies. Rodriguez nodded for him to continue, her face betraying nothing. The Harvesters are unlike any species in the Accord. They consume resources, including sentient life, without negotiation or mercy. Verix's skin darkened with emotion. We have lost 3 worlds already. Millions of lives. Lieutenant Commander Jimenez quietly slid a data tablet toward Rodriguez. Intelligence analysis based on the transmission data the aliens had shared. She glanced at it briefly before returning her attention to Verix. "And you've come to us because?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Your species understands conflict in ways we never needed to learn," Verix admitted, his pride visibly wounded. "We've observed your defensive capabilities, your tactical thinking. We need that expertise." Rodriguez leaned back slightly. "You need soldiers." The alien delegation exchanged uncomfortable glances before Verix nodded. "Yes." "And what do we receive in exchange?" The aliens projected a holographic display showing technological schematics. Rodriguez recognized advanced propulsion systems, energy manipulation techniques, and material science beyond Earth's current capabilities. "I'll need to consult with Earth Central," Rodriguez said, though her mind was already calculating possibilities. She nodded to her aide, who escorted the aliens to their waiting area. Once alone with her senior staff, Rodriguez activated the security field. Opinions. Captain Queasy, her tactical officer, spoke first. "Their technology is genuine. That propulsion system alone would cut our interstellar travel time by 80%. "And the threat?" Rodriguez asked. Commander Chen, Intelligence Division, brought up intercepted visual data. The Harvesters appear to be an insectoid hive species, highly organized, relentless. The Accord isn't exaggerating the danger. "They're not telling us everything," Jimenez noted. "There's something about these Harvesters they're holding back." Rodriguez nodded. "Of course they are, but so are we." She tapped her console, opening a secure channel to Earth. "General Chung, we have a situation that requires immediate attention." 3 days later, the first human military advisors boarded Accord vessels. Marine Captain Hassan led his team onto the Accord flagship Harmonious Journey, his practiced eyes immediately identifying defensive weaknesses in the ship's design. No internal security checkpoints, minimal compartmentalization, and is that their bridge exposed at the fore. He muttered to his sergeant. "It's like they designed this ship to be easily captured." The Accord crew watched nervously as the human soldiers moved through their vessel, their synchronized movements and constant environmental awareness, unlike anything the peaceful species had witnessed before. In the engine room, human engineers struggled to contain their excitement as they examined technology previously only theorized in Earth's most advanced research facilities. "We can adapt these principles to our weapons systems," whispered Lieutenant Park to her colleague as they studied the Accord energy matrices. "Triple the yield while reducing power consumption by half." Aboard the Intrepid, Admiral Rodriguez finalized the agreement with Chancellor Verix. "My soldiers will help defend your worlds and train your people," she stated. "In return, we expect full technological exchange and alliance status." Verix's skin rippled with concern. "You must understand, some on our council fear what might happen if we give a warrior species such advanced technology." Rodriguez's expression softened slightly. "And some on our council fear what might happen if we send our people to die for aliens we barely know. Yet here we are, taking a chance on each other because the alternative is worse." Verix extended a slender appendage in agreement. "To unlikely alliances, then." Rodriguez grasped it carefully in a human handshake. "Let's go hunting." Lieutenant Commander Jackson's hands gripped the control yoke of the destroyer Relentless as the ship hurtled between 2 massive harvester vessels. Warning klaxons blared across the bridge as the tactical officer called out incoming fire vectors. Evasive pattern Delta, Jackson ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos. Weapons, target their propulsion nodes on my mark. The Relentless banked hard, inertial dampeners straining as the ship pulled a maneuver that would have torn apart less robust vessels. Behind them, the Harvester ships opened fire on the space the human destroyer had occupied milliseconds earlier and hit each other instead. Direct hits on both targets, reported the tactical officer, unable to keep the satisfaction from her voice. Their shields are fluctuating. Jackson didn't waste time celebrating. Bring us about. All batteries, fire when ready. In the Accord observation vessel hovering at the edge of the battle zone, Science Director Kelvo watched in stunned silence. His recording appendages captured every movement of the human ships as they danced through space, executing maneuvers his species had never even conceived. The G-forces they're enduring should render them unconscious, he noted as the Relentless pulled another impossible turn. Their internal biology must have adaptations we don't understand. Beside him, Admiral Zexor's skin had paled to an almost translucent white, the Accord equivalent of being awestruck. It's not just their physical endurance. Look at their coordination. The 6 human destroyers, though seemingly fighting independent battles across the combat zone, were executing a complex strategic ballet. Each movement herded the Harvester dreadnoughts into increasingly disadvantageous positions, forcing them to block each other's firing solutions or risk friendly fire incidents. They're using the Harvester's greater numbers against them, Zexor realized, creating confusion and target saturation. Aboard the flagship Intrepid, Admiral Rodriguez monitored the battle from the command center, her experienced eyes picking out patterns in the seemingly chaotic engagement. Sigma Squadron, close the gap in Sector 4, she ordered calmly. Phoenix Squadron, prepare for the hammer maneuver on my mark. The holographic display showed the human destroyers suddenly converging from multiple vectors, concentrating their firepower on a single Harvester vessel. Its shields collapsed under the synchronized assault, followed by targeted strikes that disabled its weapon systems. One down, Rodriguez noted. Prepare boarding teams. Her executive officer looked up in surprise. We're boarding them. In the middle of the battle. Rodriguez's expression remained impassive. We need intelligence on their command structures. This is our opportunity. The battle continued for another 20 minutes, the human ships taking damage but systematically dismantling the Harvester formation. When the Harvester command ship attempted to retreat, 2 human destroyers cut off its escape path, disabling its engines with surgical precision. As the remaining Harvester vessels scattered, Rodriguez opened a channel to Captain Hassan's Marine team. The command ship is yours, Captain. Find the answers. Aboard the Accord observation vessel, the alien crew watched in silence as human boarding shuttles launched toward the crippled Harvester flagship. They're entering the vessel. Kelvo's voice rose in alarm. While it's still partially operational, Zexor's skin rippled with a pattern that signified growing understanding. They're hunters, he said quietly, not just warriors. They don't just defeat their enemies. They study them, learn from them. The communications officer interrupted their conversation. Admiral Rodriguez is requesting to speak with you, sir. When Rodriguez's face appeared on the view screen, she was calm despite the battle that had just concluded. Epsilon Station is secure, Admiral Zexor. Your civilians are safe. The Accord Admiral's translator struggled to convey the complex emotional harmonics in his reply. How did you overcome such odds? Rodriguez's expression softened slightly. Humanity has spent its entire history being outnumbered by predators. Admiral, we're used to beating the odds. The observation deck of the converted Accord cruiser Stellar Harmony had become an unofficial gathering place where off-duty humans and aliens mingled. Sergeant Kelly demonstrated a handstand to a group of fascinated Meridian engineers, their tentacle-like appendages waving in appreciation of the physical feat. Your species' balance is remarkable, noted Trell, the lead Meridian engineer, and you do this for entertainment. Kelly flipped back to her feet with practiced ease. It's exercise too. Keeping your body strong helps keep your mind sharp. She grinned at their bewilderment. Your turn. The Meridian's attempts at mimicking the human posture resulted in a tangled heap of limbs and good-natured trilling sounds that the translation software interpreted as laughter. In another corner of the deck, Engineer Patel hunched over a workbench where he had disassembled an Accord energy matrix alongside components from a standard human pulse rifle. The crystalline structure of your power cells is fascinating, he explained to Accord technician Vera. It doesn't just store energy, it amplifies it. Vera's sensory filaments extended with curiosity. We've never considered weapons applications for this technology. I'm not just thinking weapons, Patel replied, sketching a diagram. See. With these modifications, we could improve your life support efficiency by 40%, your shield generators by 65%, and yes, create more effective defenses. Vera studied the diagram, her bioluminescent patterns shifting from skeptical blue to interested green. You see connections where we never thought to look. Across the ship in the galley, Chef Ramirez had begun what he called a cultural exchange program, but was really an excuse to introduce alien species to human cuisine, and vice versa. No, absolutely not. Commander Takeda protested as Ramirez offered him a gelatinous purple substance. The last thing you gave me vibrated. That was a delicacy on Meridian Prime, Ramirez countered. This is mild by comparison. Nearby, Dr. Nuritel continued her interviews with human crew members, her recording appendage capturing every response for her ongoing xenological study. So this chess requires you to sacrifice pieces strategically, she asked Lieutenant Wu, who was setting up a board. Exactly. Wu nodded. Sometimes you lose something small to gain something greater. It's about thinking several moves ahead. Nuritel's translator vibrated with interest. A simulation of warfare, yet reduced to pure strategy without emotional components. Wu smiled slightly. Oh, there are plenty of emotions in chess. Ask anyone who's lost a game they should have won. The ship's intercom chimed, and Captain Rodriguez's voice filled the room. All personnel report to stations. Long-range sensors have detected harvester activity in the Proxima sector. The transformation was immediate. The relaxed, casual atmosphere vanished as humans snapped to attention. Equipment was secured, and conversations halted mid-sentence. Even the food in Ramirez's hand was abandoned as he hurried toward his battle station. Nuritel watched in fascination as the previously sociable humans moved with coordinated precision, their expressions shifting to focused determination. Your species can change states so quickly, she commented to Wu as he rose to leave. He paused briefly. It's not changing states. We're always both, ready to relax, ready to fight. Two sides of the same coin. As the human crew dispersed to their stations, the Accord scientists gathered by the viewport, speaking in their native harmonic language. They adapted our shield technology in under 2 weeks, Vera noted. Technology that took us centuries to develop. Trell's appendages rippled in agreement, and their capacity to alternate between leisure and combat readiness. It's as though they were designed for both purposes simultaneously. Not designed, Nuritel corrected. Evolved. In an environment where both cooperation and competition were necessary for survival. She studied her notes on human behavior. We may have sought them out for their warrior skills, but I suspect that's only a fraction of what makes them unique. On the bridge, human and Accord officers worked side by side, each contributing their distinct perspectives to the coming engagement, different in almost every way, yet beginning to form something neither civilization had anticipated. Genuine understanding. President Okafor stood in Earth's unified command center deep beneath the Kilimanjaro complex, surrounded by holographic displays showing the approaching harvester fleet. The room hummed with focused energy as military and civilian leaders coordinated the planet's defense. Status report, she requested, her voice calm despite the gravity of the situation. Defense Minister Cheng gestured to the tactical display. Orbital defense grid at full capacity. Civilian shelters report 87% occupancy. reserve units fully mobilized. Okafor studied the incoming enemy formation and the evacuation protocols. Essential personnel and genetic diversity repositories have been transferred to the lunar bunkers, confirmed Dr. Sato, head of the Continuity of Civilization Commission. If Earth falls, humanity will survive. The president nodded, then turned to the Accord liaison, Ambassador Gentar, who observed the proceedings with a mixture of awe and concern. "Ambassador, you seem troubled," Okafor noted. Gentar's translator vibrated as he responded. "Your people face extinction, yet I sense no panic. Only purpose." Okafor offered a thin smile. "Humanity has contemplated its end for millennia, Ambassador. We've had time to prepare." In cities across the globe, scenes played out that no simulation could have predicted. In Moscow, retired veterans conducted impromptu combat training in subway stations converted to shelters. In Nairobi, university biochemistry students mass-produced medical supplies. In Rio de Janeiro, drone enthusiasts reprogrammed their devices for reconnaissance. The Accord observation team documented it all, their reports streaming back to their homeworld with increasingly urgent notations. They'd prepared for this scenario for generations, reported Chief Observer Telex. Underground food reserves, distributed manufacturing capabilities, civilian defense protocols. It's as though they've been expecting invasion their entire existence. Above a small town in Nebraska, Harvester scout ships encountered something their species had never before witnessed: civilians who fought back. Farm equipment repurposed with makeshift weapons opened fire as community alert sirens wailed across the plains. The Harvester Queen, monitoring the invasion from her high ship, received increasingly confused reports from her forward units. This prey species was behaving unlike any encountered in their long history of conquest. Instead of fleeing or surrendering, humans organized, adapted, and counterattacked. Aboard the Accord diplomatic vessel in lunar orbit, High Chancellor Verix watched the unfolding resistance with growing recognition. "Now I understand," he said softly to his advisors. "We feared their warships because we thought they represented humanity's nature. We were wrong." "Wrong, Chancellor?" asked his aide. "Their warships aren't the exception to their nature," Verix explained, gesturing toward the displays showing Earth's coordinated defense. "They're the extension of it. Their entire civilization is structured around survival, not just as individuals, but as a species." In the Australian outback, Harvester ground forces discovered another unpleasant surprise. The harsh landscape humans had not only survived in but thrived within for thousands of years proved just as hostile to alien invaders. Local defense forces used their intimate knowledge of the terrain to devastating effect, disappearing into the landscape between strikes. Near the North American eastern seaboard, Admiral Rodriguez's fleet emerged from hyperspace behind a Harvester invasion force, catching them in a perfectly executed pincer movement. "All ships, engage according to Plan Phoenix," Rodriguez ordered, her voice steady. "Let's show them what happens when you threaten our home." As Earth's defenders mobilized globally, something remarkable happened across Harvester communication channels. For the first time in their expansionist history, they transmitted a concept their hive mind had never before needed to express: doubt. The Harvester Queen, processing the unexpected resistance from what should have been easy prey, issued new orders to her fleet. For the first time ever, they would commit additional resources to subjugate a single world, a tacit acknowledgement that humanity was unlike any species they had encountered before. What they didn't yet understand was that humans didn't just fight for survival. They had elevated it to an art form, refined through thousands of years of facing existential threats, both real and imagined. The Joint Strike Force emerged from hyperspace in tight formation, immediately confronted by the massive Harvester defense fleet orbiting their homeworld. Captain Hassan stood on the bridge of the assault carrier Valiant, studying the tactical displays with practiced calm. 800-plus enemy vessels, his executive officer reported, voice tight. Heavily armed and positioned in layered defensive formations. Hassan nodded, unsurprised. Right where intelligence said they'd be. He opened the fleet-wide channel. All units, execute Thermopylae protocol. Marine teams, prepare for drop. Across the Human Accord fleet, ships began a complex choreography that resembled chaos to untrained eyes, but followed a precisely calculated pattern. The larger vessels formed a spearhead formation while smaller craft engaged the outer harvester defenses in what appeared to be suicidal charges. Aboard the Accord command ship, Admiral Zexor watched with both horror and fascination. They're sacrificing their vanguard. He observed as several human destroyers took devastating hits while drawing enemy fire. His tactical officer's skin pulsed with realization. No, look at the engagement pattern. They're not being sacrificed. They're creating a corridor. True to the officer's observation, the seemingly random skirmishes had opened a narrow path through the harvester defenses, a momentary gap just wide enough for the specialized assault carriers to slip through. Marine drop pods away, Hassan announced as the Valiant shuddered under enemy fire. Deploying electronic countermeasures now. The drop pods plummeted toward the harvester world, their heat shields glowing as they tore through the atmosphere. Inside one, Marine Lieutenant Carter checked her team's equipment one final time. Remember your training, she told her squad. These hive structures will disorient you. Focus on your objectives and trust your HUD navigation. The pods crashed through the crystalline outer shell of the massive hive complex, deploying immediate defensive perimeters as the Marines emerged in combat formation. The alien architecture surrounded them. Organic curves merged with technological components in a disorienting labyrinth. Multiple contacts warned Corporal Diaz as chittering sounds echoed through the corridors. Harvester drones approaching from all vectors. Carter nodded. Expected resistance. Proceed according to plan. The Marines advanced methodically through the hive, encountering increasingly fierce resistance as they approached the central chamber. Unlike the chaotic firefights portrayed in entertainment media, their progress was deliberate, each member covering specific angles, movements coordinated with minimal verbal communication. Hassan monitored their progress from orbit, directing supporting fire from the fleet to keep the corridor open. Team Alpha has reached Checkpoint 3, he reported to Admiral Rodriguez. Beta and Charlie providing diversionary pressure as planned. When Carter's team reached the central neural cluster, the physical embodiment of the harvester hive mind, they faced their most difficult challenge. The elite Guardian drones swarmed from hidden chambers, cutting off their planned extraction route. We're surrounded, Diaz reported, the strain evident even in his disciplined voice. Carter assessed their situation with rapid clarity. Deploy the electromagnetic pulse devices. All personnel, activate isolation protocols. Around them, Marines activated specialized equipment built with adapted Accord technology. The EMPs they deployed were unlike anything Earth could have created alone. Targeted disruptions specifically calibrated to the harvester neural frequencies. When the devices activated, the effect was immediate. The synchronized movements of the Guardian drones faltered, their coordinated attack dissolving into confused individual actions. The hive connection is temporarily severed, Carter reported, her team already moving toward the central neural cluster. Proceeding with primary objective. The specialized charges they placed throughout the neural network were not designed to destroy the harvester consciousness, but to fundamentally alter it, another innovation born from the Human Accord collaboration. As the changes cascaded through the hive mind, the harvester queen experienced something entirely new to her species, individuality separate from the collective, and with it, the capacity for negotiation rather than pure conquest. In orbit, the effects rippled through the harvester fleet as ships suddenly lost their perfect coordination, some going dormant while others continued fighting with diminished effectiveness. Hassan watched the tactical displays as the tide turned. The neural restructuring is working, he reported, allowing himself a small smile. They're no longer functioning as a unified force. Despite their success, the cost had been steep. 3 human destroyers lost with all hands. Dozens of Accord vessels severely damaged. Carter's Marine team reporting 60% casualties. But they had achieved what the Accord's strategic algorithms had deemed impossible, not the destruction of the harvesters, but their transformation from a mindless consuming force into a species capable of choice. The observation deck of Concordia Station bustled with activity as delegates from Earth, the Stellar Accord, and most remarkably, the Reformed Harvester Collective, gathered for the one-year commemoration of the Alliance. The station itself stood as testament to the unprecedented cooperation, its design blending human defensive architecture with Accord aesthetic beauty. Captain Hassan, now sporting a prosthetic arm that incorporated both human and alien technology, watched the proceedings from a quiet corner. The neural adaptive materials of his replacement limb responded to his thoughts with greater precision than his original arm had possessed. Another unexpected benefit of the Alliance. Contemplating your retirement again, Admiral Rodriguez asked as she joined him by the viewport, her dress uniform adorned with new diplomatic insignia alongside her military decorations. Hassan smiled slightly, just thinking about how unlikely all this would have seemed a year ago. Below them on the main floor, High Chancellor Verix and President Okafor signed additional cooperation protocols, while cameras from a dozen worlds captured the moment. Nearby, a delegation of harvesters, their once fearsome appearance now softened by colorful diplomatic markings, observed with their newly individualized consciousness. "The harvester representative wishes to speak with you," Rodriguez mentioned. "Their new primary consciousness apparently feels a specific connection to you, since your team implemented the neural restructuring." Hassan nodded, still strange to think of them as individuals rather than a hive. "Strange for them too," Rodriguez replied. Their delegate described it as being born as adults with ancient memories. Across the chamber, the Children's Academy demonstration drew appreciative murmurs as human and alien youngsters showcased their integrated education program. A young human girl patiently helped a Meridian child balance on two appendages, while nearby, Accord children enthusiastically participated in a modified version of Capture the Flag that incorporated principles from 3 different species' play behaviors. "That's where the real future lies," Hassan observed, nodding toward the children. "Not in treaties or technology exchanges, but in the next generation growing up without our preconceptions." The station's communication array suddenly lit up with incoming transmissions from across the Allied territories. Science Director Kelvo, now head of the Joint Research Initiative, hurried toward the command center with excited movements. "The deep space probes have detected something," he explained as he passed. "Signals unlike any we've encountered before, from beyond the galactic rim." Hassan and Rodriguez exchanged knowing glances. "Another first contact situation?" Hassan asked. "Let's hope we've learned something from our own experiences," Rodriguez replied, though her eyes showed cautious optimism. Later that evening, as the formal ceremonies concluded, Hassan found himself on a smaller observation deck with an unlikely group: an Accord engineer, 2 human scientists, and a harvester philosopher. The latter a concept that would have been impossible to imagine before the neural restructuring. "We are still attempting to understand individual existence," the harvester explained, its manipulator limbs making graceful gestures that its species had developed for communication outside the hive mind. "Each day brings new consciousness." "That's not so different from the human experience," noted Dr. Chen, one of the neuroscientists who had helped design the restructuring protocol. "We spend our lives discovering ourselves." The Accord engineer Vera extended her sensory filaments in a gesture of agreement. "Perhaps that is what makes this alliance work. Each of our species brings different perspectives, yet we share a fundamental desire to understand the universe and our place within it." The station rotated slowly, bringing Earth into view through the viewport, a blue marble against the vastness of space, now connected to a broader community of intelligent life in ways humanity had only dreamed of in centuries of looking skyward. "We came prepared for war," Hassan reflected quietly, and found something more valuable. "Understanding." The harvester philosopher completed the thought, its voice resonating with newfound individuality. As starlight streamed through the viewport, illuminating this unlikely gathering of former enemies and reluctant allies now turned genuine colleagues, the true victory became clear. Not dominance of one species over others, but the creation of something greater than any could have achieved alone.